Let me begin with something simple but true. Democracy is under assault, not just by rioters storming the Capitol or billionaires buying our elections, but by 9 unelected individuals in black robes who were never elected by a single American voter. Yet, they hold more power over your life than most presidents. And it's time we talked about it. We've been told for decades that the Supreme Court of the United States of America is above politics, that it's sacred, that it's impartial. But I'm here to tell you something that too many of our elected leaders are too afraid to say out loud. This conservative Supreme Court is not neutral. It is not impartial. It is political, and it is dangerous. It is no longer the court of Brown versus the Board of Education. This is the court of Citizens United, Dobbs, Brune, and now Trump versus the United States. This is a court captured by ideology, funded by dark money, and weaponized against the very people it was meant to protect. And we can't afford to stay silent any longer. We stand at a pivotal moment, not in the halls of Congress, not on the battlefield, but within the very symbol of justice in this land, the United States Supreme Court. For centuries, we were told that this court is our last safeguard, a neutral arbiter above politics. That myth has collapsed. This court is political, partisan, and dangerously aligned with one party, one class, and one agenda. The decisions creeping from this court and their architects pose a threat not just to rights, but to the democracy we cherish. I'm Hendrell Remus, and this is Politics Unfiltered. The illusion of impartiality is dead. Let's start with the myth that this court is above politics. Clarence Thomas, yes, the same Clarence Thomas who never saw a right-wing billionaire he didn't take a vacation from, has accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars in gifts, travel, even a private school tuition for a relative, and still not a single consequence. Samuel Alito flies flags outside of his home that echo January the 6th insurrectionists, and then has the audacity to rule on cases related to that very attack. If a judge in any other courtroom in America had those ties, they'd be disqualified, disbarred, or even dismissed from the bench. But on the highest court in the land, they keep their seats, they keep their power, and they keep rewriting the rules of democracy for the rich, for the powerful, and yes, for the extreme. Look, folks, this is no longer about judicial philosophy. It's about judicial accountability. And right now, there is none, zero, nada, not 1 ounce of it. The only thing that this Supreme Court is giving us is a legacy of destructive rulings, period. Let's take a hard look at the rulings that have shaped this court's legacy. And I want you to think about what kind of country they are creating from the bench. Dobbs v. Jackson, the decision that overturned Roe versus Wade. For 50 years, women in this country had a constitutional right to control their own bodies. One decision, 6 justices, just like that, gone. In a single morning, they stripped away a right that generations of women fought for. And let's be clear, the justices who overturned Roe, they told us, they lied in their confirmation hearings. They said they would respect precedent. That means they wouldn't go back and overturn Roe v. Wade. They lied, plain and simple. They lied. Not only did they lie, but they lied under oath. And they did it with no consequences. Let's take Brune versus New York. They struck down sensible gun laws in a nation facing a gun violence epidemic. Schools, churches, grocery stores, nowhere in this country is safe. But the court says States can't even ask for permits to carry a firearm in public. Tell me, what kind of a pro-life movement fights harder for a fetus than for a child in a classroom under lockdown? Take students for fair admission versus Harvard. They gutted affirmative action. Let's not mince words. This was an attack on opportunity for Black and brown students, period. And it came from a court stacked by presidents who lost the popular vote. They say they're, ending race-conscious admissions while ignoring that race has always shaped access to education in this country. Always. But it doesn't stop there. Take Moore versus Harper. In that ruling, it nearly gave state legislatures the unchecked power to decide elections without oversight. A theory so extreme, it was once considered fringe. Yet it made it to the Supreme Court and came one vote away from becoming law. And now we see Trump versus the United States, where this court handed former President Trump at the time virtual immunity from prosecution for acts he committed while in office. You heard that right. The same president who tried to overturn an election, who incited a violent insurrection, is now protected by the very branch of government that was supposed to hold him accountable. What kind of justice system protects a king, but not the people? What kind of democracy lets one man sit above the law? Folks, that's not democracy. That's autocracy with a legal diploma. But it hasn't gotten better since he returned to the presidency. They're doubling down on the dumb. Now, under President Trump's second term, this court has gone from passively conservative to aggressively politicized. The Free Speech Coalition versus Paxton. The court allowed Texas to impose online age verification for pornography sites. This layered new barriers on First Amendment freedoms, using state power to coerce private platforms under a moralistic righteousness. It was a 6-3 conservative ruling, shrinking protected speech in this country. The Supreme Court has used its power to clear mass layoffs for Trump. They've removed a lower court block, greenlighting Trump's firing of nearly 15% of the State Department and hundreds of thousands of federal employees without congressional approval. The court is making these decisions on its own. Federal workers are losing livelihoods and vital resources in this country may collapse, all with judicial blessing. They even made a shadow docket birthright citizenship ruling. The court narrowed nationwide injunctions, hampering judicial oversight of Trump's executive orders, including one that attacked the 14th Amendment. Justice Sotomayor said, it undermines uniform constitutional protection, with president now subject to geography. She was absolutely right. Absolutely right. And folks, if you're listening to this podcast, those are just some of the decisions that they have made. Under this court, education and identity becomes political battlegrounds. And we even I hate to say it, but we even have Uncle Thomas, Justice Thomas, Clarence Thomas, now bursting at the seams to dismantle the Voting Rights Act and strip Black people and brown people of their rights. And trust me, you can hear the frustration in every word of a liberal dissent on the Supreme Court these days. Judge Jackson is single-handedly becoming a force to be reckoned with when it comes to dissenting to some of these conservative rulings on the bench. It's not just disagreement, it's a warning flare, a cry from the bench that democracy itself is being bent to the will of a conservative majority with a political agenda. These justices, often outnumbered and outgunned, are watching decades of precedent fall like dominoes, rights unraveled, protections erased, norms absolutely bulldozed. And it's not just the liberals on the court raising the alarm. Every time a conservative justice dares to side with the dissent, to step away from the hard-right bloc, they become a target. The pressure is swift, it's brutal, and it's very public, especially from the president. From political operatives to media blowhards, they're branded as traitors to the cause. Because in this new era, moderation is hearsay, and independent thought is weakness. What's happening on that bench, what's happening at the Supreme Court, isn't just legal, it's ideological warfare. And the few voices of caution, compromise, or even conscience, they're being drowned out in a storm of partisan loyalty and manufactured outrage. Point blank, period. That's what we're facing in this country. That's what we're up against. That's the new United States Supreme Court. Who's really pulling the strings here? So how did we get here? Let me introduce you to Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society. If you've never heard of them, you gotta research these folks. Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society. They are in essence the puppet masters of the Supreme Court. Behind this conservative takeover, they're calling the shots. They spent decades grooming, vetting, and placing justices on the court, and they were bankrolled by dark money groups that still hide their donors from the public. This isn't a conspiracy, folks. It's a business plan. A handful of billionaires and far-right operatives poured hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars into reshaping the judiciary. Not just to overturn Roe, not just to kill affirmative action, but to lock in their power long after their policies lose public support. The Supreme Court is no longer a check on power. It is the power. And who gets hurt the most? Let's be clear. This isn't just about institutions and ideologies. This is about real people. It's about the woman in Texas forced to carry a non-viable pregnancy because her doctors are too scared of being sued. It's about the student in Mississippi whose dreams were shattered because race can't be considered, but legacy status still can. It's about the working class black man in Chicago who now has to walk past armed men on the train platform because concealed carry laws were struck down. It's about you. It's about your children. It's about every American in this country who believes in justice, who believes in fairness and equality under the law. And it's about a court that has turned its back on all of us. So what do we do about it? How do we rein these folks in? Now, I know what some people are thinking. What can we really do? What can we even do? Folks, if you listen to this podcast, I get it. You're probably thinking these folks are appointed for life. What can we do? Look, the Constitution gives them lifetime appointments. We can't vote them out. We can't recall them. But we're not powerless. We can fight. We not only can we fight, but we must fight. First, as a people, we need to demand a binding code of ethics for the Supreme Court. Every judge in America follows one except the 9 with the most power. That's outrageous. Secondly, we need to push for term limits or rotations on the court. The founders, I don't think they ever intended for someone to serve 40 years with unchecked influence on the United States Supreme Court. That's monarchy. That's not democracy. Third, we must be willing to consider expanding the court. I know that sounds outrageous. I know that conservatives and folks have tried to say that if you believe that, you're on the fringes. The number of justices on the Supreme Court is not in the Constitution. I don't know if you know that or not, but it's not in the Constitution. It has changed before. And guess what? It can change again. When a court becomes too extreme, when it threatens the rights of people, it is our duty to restore balance as the American people. And finally, we have to vote. We have to vote. We have to vote every state house, every Senate seat, every president, because it's not just the court. It's the pipeline. It's the people being put in this pipeline. The people we elect choose the judges who shape our future. If you're listening to this podcast, I want to remind you that elections are how we build the firewall. And in this next election, that firewall better be strong, because we have to call for a new era of accountability. The Supreme Court was once a place where justice echoed louder than ideology, where fairness stood taller than fear, where truth meant something. But folks, not anymore. This court has betrayed that simple promise. And now it's on us to reclaim it. If we don't do it, the folks elected to do it, they've shown that they don't have the appetite and they're too cowardice to even step up to confront the issue. But we have to do it, because we don't need a court that plays politics with our rights. We don't need justices who hide behind their robes while they hand out favors to the powerful. We need courage. We need accountability. We need change. Change at the United States Supreme Court. The robes don't make them gods. The gavel doesn't make them untouchable. The Constitution begins with 3 simple words: we the people. And that includes the power to fix what's broken at the Supreme Court. We have the power to fix what's broken at the Supreme Court. It starts with a vote. So let's be bold. Let's be fearless for once. Let's remind them that the highest court in the land still answers to the people who built it. Justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. And right now, all we see is a court on the wrong side of history. Let's change that. Let's change that together. And it hasn't always been this way. 15 years ago, this court actually ruled in favor of Obamacare. It protected the Affordable Care Act. 5 years ago, it actually stopped Trump from ending DACA. But then 3 years ago, something began to change. That's when it overturned Roe and began this dangerous new slide backwards. Today, this court is reversing protections, is amplifying persecution, and is cementing one-party rule in the United States of America. Listen, these folks wear robes, but they're not judges. They almost feel as if they're activists with gavels. They offer no fairness, no dignity, only ideology. If we do nothing, this court becomes the decision maker on elections. It becomes a decision maker on voting access, on bodies, on families, on citizenship, on civil rights, shaping America into a partisan autocracy with Trump sitting atop the throne. It's time we remember that the court serves we the people, not billionaires, not powerful ideologues, not an authoritarian president. They are not gods. Their power is our power. Their power is your power. Their power is your loved one's power. Their power is your neighbor's power. We must act. We have to call them to account. We have to demand change. Our democracy deserves better from our United States Supreme Court. Our children deserve better. We deserve better. I mean, it's just that simple. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm talking to you. You and the people in your life. Even the strangers you pass throughout your day. I'm talking about all those folks who in this country depend on this court to be impartial and to be fair and to deliver justice. We can do better. We deserve better. And the only way we do it, the only way we get it, is that we fight to create that betterment. I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit me up on social media at Hendrell Remus. and let's keep this conversation unfiltered. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and definitely share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, truth matters, people matter, and silence is never, ever neutral. Until next time, my friends, stay informed, stay critical, and never stop asking the hard questions. This is Politics Unfiltered, and I'm out.